Hi, Ed. So I've got a good conversation with you today around people and hiring. We're talking a lot about hiring at the moment because one, it's one of the fundamental pillars to grow your firm, but two, it's one of, if not one of the hardest seasons we've had in hiring that we've seen in the industry in a long time. So thanks as always for your insights.
Mhm.
The first thing is, and it's a bit of a joke, but it is very topical at the moment, is I don't know whether we even need to be talking about hiring because if you listen to the market, they're all telling us that our jobs are going to be redundant very quickly and everyone's in the accounting space is no longer going to have a job in the next couple of years due to the advent and introduction of AI. You've heard this a few times before in your career. So I just
Yeah.
wanted your comment to cut through the noise on the topic because yes, AI is different to revolutions, evolutions in tech that have come in the past, but the theme's probably the same in terms of the noise and what's happening in the industry. So give us some sage advice to cut through all the rhetoric and noise at the moment.
Um, well, when I first started in accounting, we needed around 15 accountants per $1 million in fees. And then as software came on board, those desktop accounting came on board, that actually reduced the number of accountants that's required. Okay, so that actually reduced it to about 9. And then when it went into the cloud accounting, actually reduced it to about 5. And I believe that with AI, you'll reduce it to 2, right? So, but accounting firms made the same amount of money. So our costs reduced, but our profit remained the same. So we were able to get through a lot more productivity and with a lot less overhead. So from an accounting firm's perspective, it's always a good thing to be more efficient and run your business with lower costs and so forth. So that's going to still be there. I believe that what's going to change is there's going to be more emphasis on the relationship because AI can produce the numbers, but you still got that relationship. You've still got to be able to explain it, and you've got to be able to explain it in the way that is relevant to their situation, and only the accountant will understand that. So that relationship will still be there. But for graduates coming out of university, it would be less number crunching, grinding, the manual kind of work. It will be the computers will do everything, and your skill set when you come out of university is more about your people skills, your communication, building relationships, because we're in the business of relationships. It's the relationship that the clients want with us. That's very important, and that's going to get more and more and more important over the years. Yes, the number of accountants will be less, but the accounting business will still be there. So, and I've seen that over from the 80s, all the way through. Our profits have remained the same as efficiencies got more and more, and I'm talking from Australia, but our overall unemployment rate has been the same as the economy grew. As the economy grew, the GDP grew, it created more jobs, and these people got absorbed into the overall growth of the country. So I can't see that slowing down anytime soon. So certainly from Australia's point of view, we'll still have lots of jobs for everyone. It's just be different, yeah.
So from that perspective, right, a firm owner, an owner-led firm, heavily in the trenches, is currently having to contend with both thinking about what the impact of AI is going to be on their business from a people and from a service perspective, but then also currently dealing with the fire of I can't find talent to do the work that I've got on my plate right now. and I can't keep great talent because of the just pure shortage in the industry. So what do you say to a firm owner that's like stuck in this almost tug of war in the industry at the moment?
It's always been the same for as long as I've, you know, been alive, if you like, or old enough to be able. There's always been a shortage of getting good people, so that's always been there. There's people out there, but just getting good people, and part of it is our problem because we traditionally run flat teams, and when you run flat teams, you're gonna get this problem. So when you run deep and narrow teams, and you have a blueprint for the team with the right positions in this team structure, and then you recruit the right person for the right seat, then it's a lot easier and it's a lot more productive. It's a lot more efficient. But most firms don't do that. They just hire. I call it throw a body at the workload, and doesn't matter what that workload is. Just throw a body at it, and then hope that it works out. And we see that with the firms that understand the firm that's worked with us through Wize Growth and so forth. They have their blueprint of their team structure, and then we recruit to fit those positions. And the firms that haven't done our coaching, that they just come in, they just want to hire an accountant, and that's where the problem is. They're not specifically hiring the right person for the right position, and I think that's where the main problem is.
So you're saying there we don't actually in fact have a talent or talent shortage problem. We've got a team structure problem. The more systemic issue is team structure, not talent shortage.
Correct.
Very interesting. And I just want to touch on your point there on recruitment, the recruitment process, because having our own recruitment agency through Wize Talent, we get a first-hand cold-face insight into the challenges that firm owners have in the recruitment process. And it's very interesting to see the results and the contrast between a firm owner who's willing to be open and adoptive of current recruitment practices, and that being team structure, so hiring for roles, that being hybrid working, so working both in office and at home, and also just the flexibility around work, whether it be a little bit more flexible to the traditional 9 to 5, compared to those owners who are staunch in their the traditional view. The team member has to be in the office. It's an 8 to 5 working day, and there's no room for if buts or maybes around that. The result is dramatically different for obvious reasons, but I just want you to touch on that in terms of how we need to think about these new ways of recruiting and matching the market if we want to find talent.
Absolutely, because you're competing with other firms out there, and like in the past we've had to provide certain things to attract the staff to our organisation, subject to the competition, and you need to provide that option for them. Otherwise, they'll go somewhere else that will provide that option. Now, the problem, of course, is that we feel that you lose a bit of culture, you lose a bit of camaraderie, you lose a little bit of productivity, perhaps, unless you run timesheets and you can track productivity. Then you've just got to go with the market, because if you don't go with the market, you're not going to be able to find staff, because the world's moved on. And really, if you're running a business and sort of a practice, and you've got all the systems in place, and you're tracking time, the timesheets, you've got KPIs, you've got you're running our Fab 5, then our productivity, and I've still got chain and nail going, our productivity is just as high as it ever was when they used to all come to the office, but now they're working from home. Yes, it's true that you lose a little bit of culture. Yes, that's true. But it depends on the leader as to how they bring everyone together. Like we have daily huddles on now. Instead of being at the office, we have daily huddles, on Zoom. We have lots of training, and then we do get together, so they do come in to have staff training in the office. So it's just how you run that. The conditions are different today, and you've got to adjust to those conditions. But then again, it just depends on how you, as the leader of your team, engages everyone together. There is a bit more effort and a bit more planning. But if you do the planning, what I mean by planning is you make sure that these meetings are happening. And we do come into the office to do training and that kind of. If you're a bit more organized and plan it a bit, I found you're still getting the same camaraderie, the same culture, certainly the productivity is still there.
I find it interesting there, just thinking about that from what you mentioned on culture. So yes, the culture takes a bit of a hit because putting humans in a room together creates something special with culture that we just can't match virtually. However, would you agree that with what we lose in culture, our team members are gaining in that lifestyle balance or more accessibility to the things that they need to do or want to do in their own lives, making appointments, picking up kids if they need to, being in their own surroundings. So what we lose in culture, we gain in lifestyle. Would that be a fair comment to you? Just thinking it through?
Absolutely. In this day and age, it's about flexibility. Okay, having the flexibility to get the work done when when it suits your lifestyle and your timetable. And as long as if you're running it like a business and the timesheets are there, the productivity is there. I remember I was old school. Okay, I wanted everyone to come back to the office, and then when Cindy runs the business, she said, look at the numbers, and I had no comeback. The numbers were there. Our EBITs were higher than they've ever been. Our EBITDA was higher than it's ever been, and so I had no comeback to it. It was just a feeling I had.
Yeah.
But feelings aren't always accurate. You got to look at the numbers. If you look at the numbers, and the numbers will tell you the answer, and I just threw my feelings out the window and just stick with the numbers.
Cool.
But we run everything. We got the Fab Five, we got KPIs, we got timesheets, we got all of that. So it's not hard for me to get over my feelings when I look at the numbers.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, in the absence of the numbers, your feelings are all you have, right? Which
Correct.
can lead to very scary places.
Correct. Yeah, they're not. It's not very. Sometimes it's not very accurate. Sometimes it is accurate, but sometimes it's not accurate. You just got to look at the numbers. Yeah.
So, just pivoting to offshore and working remotely. So, working remotely can mean team members are locally working from home. But in the last 15 years, we've had the introduction and we've leveraged the ability to offshore and hire talent in different countries. That was very much, say, 15 years ago, we were in the early adopter phase, and there was a lot of upside and a lot of benefit to that, both from a productivity, talent pool increasing, profitability point of view. We're now into the late, not so much the late adopter stage, but we're definitely in the bigger wave of adoption of offshoring. So we are seeing it becoming harder to find talent offshore. But also with the advent of AI, the introduction of the efficiency there, and what you're saying that we could see, $1 million in fees being delivered by 2 people as a five. Where do you see offshoring going then as a strategy that a firm adopts? Do you see it becoming redundant, or does it still have its place? Is it shifting? What are your thoughts on it?
It'll still be there. It won't disappear. And as you know, Brenton, we've been doing it for a while now, and we've seen that the wages. We go to Philippines and we've seen their wages. They don't go up like in Australia by CPI. They go up by 20-30%.
Yeah.
So as the demand has grown, it's pushed their wages up. but that's normal. So we'll have an opportunity to take advantage of the lower wages for a while, but then as their standard of living increases, their wages will go up, and we've seen that throughout history. So straight after the Second World War, the Japanese wages was very low. So things that came out of Japan were very cheap because their wage structure was very low. And then as time went on, their wages caught up to the West. And then, things out of Japan are expensive. And then it went to China. China was very cost effective, but their wages have gone up now. And then it's now gone to the Philippines and Vietnam. And we're seeing the same thing. So maybe another, 5 to 10 years, their wages will catch up as well. And then, we'll have to go to another country that's still very competitive. But I think outsourcing will still be there. I just don't think the number of accountants that we need will be there as AI kicks in. But possibly our role, the accounting role, would change. We may provide other services to clients as the relationship changes. I'm not sure, but looking at history, it has changed a little bit. We've gone. It's always been a relationship, kind of a relationship with as opposed to a transactional relationship, and that's the most powerful thing you have with your client. It's that relationship, because once you've got the trust, you can do anything. You can offer them. They trust you, and they'll go with you. So I think that relationship will still be there. What we deliver to them might change over time.
So, in relation to offshoring, there has been quite a heavy debate, certainly in the last 12 months, with the hearing of cases in the Fair Work Commission in Australia. So we're talking about Australia in this instance, but it's still the debate that happens globally around hiring through a BPO or an organisation who retains the staff member but gives them to you through an outsourcing arrangement, or hiring directly and training and managing that team member directly offshore. What are your thoughts on it? Again, trying to cut through this noise at the moment where there is quite a heavy debate on the cons of hiring directly as opposed to the pros of hiring through a BPO. How would you help a firm owner make some decisions around this?
Well, obviously, first thing is cost, because if you hire them through a BPO, there's a component that goes back to the BPO organisation, and you lose a little bit of control because they really belong to the BPO, and they outsource it to you. Yes, you get the same person each time, but it's paid through the organisation. So there is a little bit of loss of control there, as opposed to hiring it directly. It's just your staff member. They just happen to not live in Sydney or live in Brisbane. They just happen to live in the Philippines. But they do everything. They work for you 100% of the time. You do the same training and so forth. And they're just not in your office. They're overseas. And with the advent of people working 2 or 3 days from home now, that's no different to that, except they're in the Philippines or in India or they're somewhere else. So, but they do work for you, and then you've got to, bring them in the same way for staff training, the culture training, all those kind of things. So I don't see any different. I'm a big believer in it, and I know it's a very controversial topic because we're told we should be hiring Australians, and that's great, but we just can't find staff. The staff is just not around, and if there were, we would. There's more availability overseas, and there's a cost factor involved. There's a cost savings factor. So if I can save some money there, I can pay my local staff a bit more. So the local staff have been more, as you know, we've got this team structure where there's a senior client manager, and the senior client manager deals with the client. So most of our accountants who are the senior client manager who communicate with the clients, they're local people. The grinders, if you like, the one that are doing all the grinding work, is generally from overseas. And if we can save, money doesn't fall out of trees, so you've got to be able to save some from somewhere where you can pay your local staff a bit more, and you can be a bit more competitive with your pricing to your clients, and you're helping. Certainly in the Philippines, we're helping those people get out of poverty. And it warms my heart to see some of our staff over there do, they end up buying a car, paying medical costs for their mum and dad to get operations done. And, their standard of living goes up, and they end up buying a house. And, it just warms my heart from a humanity point of view, to help them, get ahead in life. And of course, if we could find the staff here in Australia, we would do the same. But our unemployment is at rates about 4-point-something%, and at 5%, that's full employment, and we've always had full employment. So, and there's always a percentage that is unemployable, and that's just the way life is. And our society looks after them. Despite themselves, despite the opportunities in Australia, there are some people who are not employable, and we live in a civilized society, so we take care of them, and it works. The whole thing works, and as long as our economy is growing, which it is, then it will provide. As long as we do GDP of about 2 to 3%, our unemployment will sit at about 5% or less, and that's full employment. And the thing ticks along. So I think outsourcing is a win-win for everybody. It's a win obviously for the staff member overseas, because they get paid a lot better than if they got a local job overseas. So they're very well paid by people like ourselves. We help our staff, our local staff, because we can pay them more. If we save a bit from the outsourced staff, we can pay our local staff a bit more. It's a win for the clients, because they get their work done really quickly, and we can be a bit more competitive with the pricing to them, so they win as well. So it's a win right across the board. So I'm very big proponent and big supporter of outsourcing.